The most noble way you can live your life is in a live and let live attitude, taking that for everything that happens. That's what we do here at Agorapreneurs, talking about the Agora part of that. Agora is living voluntarily, peacefully with others for entrepreneurs. That's where the preneurs part comes in. And I am so excited to bring you this interview I had with Attorney Marc Victor. He is the founder of an organization that's called, get this, liveandletlive.org. And he shares the nitty gritty of how to deal with this, how to make it abundantly wonderful for your life, and to do what you want in your life. This is one you don't want to miss on this episode of Agorapreneurs.
Welcome to Agorapreneurs, standing for liberty and freedom, all done peacefully. Now, here is your guide, TerryBrock.
At Agorapreneurs, we talk about living the lifestyle of freedom as an entrepreneur, and the live and let live lifestyle is really critical to that. That means that what you're doing is voluntary. Adults dealing with adults, dealing voluntarily with each other. And you know what? There is a movement out for that. And one of the people that is spearheading that, matter of fact, the man himself is joining us today, a buddy of mine. His name is Marc Victor, and he's joining us now from his offices there in Arizona. Marc, good to have you with us today.
Such a pleasure to be on your podcast, Terry.
Really, really good to have you here. Now, for those of you that don't know Marc yet, you're going to want to get to know this guy. He's a certified criminal law specialist in Arizona and in Hawaii. He's practices law in both places. I've known Marc for several years now. We met at a conference where I was MC down in Acapulco. It was about freedom and liberty, and we really resonated on that. He is a strong believer in the living life fully and all the way out, helping others, and he does that very well. Not only is he really smart, which you're going to find out, but also one really nice guy. He's got a podcast with another lawyer, Andrew Marcantel, who is a partner in their law firm, Attorneys for Freedom, and they're based there in Arizona. If you need a lawyer, you want to get in touch with them. And by the way, they're available 24/7. So, and more recently, Marc has spoken on the live and let live principle, the foundation upon which he has established the world's only real peace movement. Marc, it is really good to have you here. And for those that don't know about the live and let live movement that you've got, tell us kind of in a capsule what that is.
Well, really fast, as our tagline says, we're the world's only real peace movement. And the reason I say that is we're the only one based on what we call the live and let live principle, which is just as you described it, Terry. Basically, don't be an aggressor. And what's an aggressor? Someone who initiates force or is involved in fraud or coercion or does anything that creates a substantial risk of harm to another person or their property. So we think that the law ought to be calibrated around that principle. So if you're violating that principle, you should be stopped immediately. The law should outlaw that conduct. If you're not violating that principle, well, we might conclude that you're acting immorally or in a way that's not healthy or smart even, or something like that, but not illegal. And so you should be left alone. And so that's how the law ought to work. The other side of the house is, ethics. We shouldn't forget about ethics. It's very important to have values and ethics. These are things that should never be imported into the law, but nonetheless, we try to inspire people to act in certain ways. And so we call these the aspirational values. Things like open-mindedness, tolerance, voluntary kindness, civility, building high levels of trust with other human beings, justice, a commitment to truth and facts, and rational inferences. And we do all of this because our goals in this space really are to optimize human happiness while minimizing human suffering. That's what the movement is about. It's a global peace movement, and we're organizing chapters all over the world right now.
Yeah, it sounds exciting because this is the kind of thing that people resonate with wherever you go. Just in my own non-scientific random sampling, so I go bouncing around the planet here and there, and you sit down with someone at a local bar or tavern or something. Usually after about the second or third local drink, you find out what they really think. And I'll say, how does this philosophy sound to you? Go ahead in life and do anything you want to do, literally anything, as long as two conditions are met. Number one, you take responsibility for what you're doing. And number two, you don't initiate harm against another. How does that sound to you in your culture here and wherever we are? And just in my opinion, I've seen people accept that and no one said, no, that's not right. It seems like it's pretty well universally accepted. Have you seen that with others as you travel around the world?
I've been testing this now for a long time with people, and I'm more informal with people. I met someone at the gym not too long ago, and we started chatting, and the conversation sort of drifts into politics or anything remotely close. And I just say, look, man, I'm just a live and let live kind of guy. 100% of the time, Terry, the response back is, me too. I love live and let live. And from there, it's not, I say, well, what do you think it means? And from there, we go into very quickly, you can get agreement on, well, being an aggressor, if I'm hitting you over the head or something, am I acting in accordance with live and let live? And everybody agrees no. And so for there, it's a very short space to say, don't you think this rule should apply to everybody? And even if they form groups and corporations or even governments, why would we ever want a corporation or a government or any individual to violate this rule? It seems like a pretty solid, absolute kind of a thing. And in fact, if we're ever going to get to peace and freedom on a global scale, or even in a local community, we have to adopt this rule. How could you ever get to freedom if people are initiating force or fraud or coercion against other people? It's an obvious thing, and we got to reason from principles. That's really what we're saying. Let's get the right principles and reason from there.
I like that. You start with those first principles, as we say, and you go from there that you're going to live peacefully. But I want to go a little bit more in depth here. I can see what you're saying about a corporation. Corporation they could do whatever they want as long as they're abiding by the live and let live philosophy. That kind of makes sense. And I think we need that today. But now when you talk about a government, many people would say, but wait a minute, Mark, we do need government to enforce laws. Like people could be taking drugs, which are bad for them. And they might be getting drunk and get into a car or something. We would need government for that. How does the live and let live principle apply towards governments?
Well, I like to say it very simply, which is do whatever you want with your body, your property, your money, your time, anything. The only restriction is so long as you don't violate the rule. And given that governments are really just collections of humans, they don't just spring into existence. These are things we've created. And if nobody has a right to violate the rule, then this isn't something you can delegate to a group or a corporation or a government. So I always say, look, I'm not necessarily big government, small government, no government. I don't care about any of that. I say, so long as the government doesn't violate the rule, that's all I really care about. So anytime, any question you ask me about any issue, really, you say, Mark, how do you feel about issue X? I'm going to say, tell me about it, Terry. And if somebody's violating that rule, I'm going to say, I am against it. And I think we should stop that activity immediately. But if nobody's violating the rule and no group, no corporation, no government, then I'm going to say, look, I may not like it. And that's my personal opinion. I may even try to persuade people to do something differently. But at the end of the day, if they're not violating that rule, I think as a legal matter, they should be left alone.
Absolutely. Even if they're doing something that I think, ooh, that's not good. Well, if they're not harming anyone and they're not going to take anything from me, seems like it would be a really good thing to do. And I think that we need to see that today even more. I love the video that you have on your site. And by the way, if you haven't seen that site, those of you watching this, go over to Live and Let Live, just like it spells out, liveandletlive.org. And it will show you what it is. And watch the video that he said. In that video, Mark, you talk about some, I think, so many points that are really, really good. When you're talking about the way that people are living in the way that we see today, people can create a virus. They can create something we saw that was there. We don't know all the details of it. We're going to sort it out. But the pandemic. But if someone can do that, that's initiating force. But it's a different kind than sending a bunch of warplanes over and attacking. How does the live and let live principle apply in that and say another country, we're not mentioning any names right now, but just another country that might create some kind of a calamity that could happen to the rest of the world?
Well, Terry, I like to think about this being a criminal defense lawyer for the last 27 years, I think in terms of the law. And if you're somebody who likes and agrees with the concept of self-defense, well, then you agree with the notion that you don't actually have to wait until somebody's fist actually hits your face. You're actually authorized in all 50 states to use self-defense at the time somebody creates a substantial and imminent risk of harm to another person. So what we're really saying here is You don't have to wait. Once we've reached the point of the substantial risk, now you can take action. Well, the same thing applies in all contexts. So say, for example, my neighbor is doing something in his or her basement that's creating a substantial risk. Maybe they're experimenting with deadly viruses, or they're storing hazardous chemicals in a very dangerous way.
Or creating a bomb of some type.
Explosives. If what they're doing fits into a box that we call a substantial risk of harm to another person or their property, they're already in violation of the rule. And if you think about it, it doesn't comport with live and let live, right? If I'm next door and they're doing things that could explode at any moment, I'm not free to live my life here. I got to deal with that situation because I could be killed at any moment. So they're violating that rule of live and let live. Remember, there's two parts here. It's not just live. It's not just do whatever you want. It's live, but you also got to let other people live. There's a line we got to draw there. And the principle that we've talked about, that's the line. That's the place at which what you're doing is interfering with another person. And that's the one thing you can't do.
I like that. You know, Marc, what you've given us is a really good filter on how we can determine what to do in life. Any decision have to do it with the two major parties here in the U.S., the Republicans and the Democrats. Who knows what they're going to believe, say 20 years from now, 40 years from now. They capriciously jump back and forth, and many of us would say there's not really too much of a difference in many other areas. But we also see that we've got a filter by which we can choose. You and I say, look, is it harming someone else? If it is, you don't do it, and we stop you from that. So we want to live that way. How does that relate to an entrepreneur? And how can an entrepreneur get out there and live their life in that live and let live style and still create abundance?
Yeah, well, it relates to everybody the same way. In fact, you might be surprised, Terry, that we in the live and let live movement, we don't take an official position either on capitalism or socialism. You might be surprised to hear that. What we say is do whatever you like. Don't violate the rule. The same thing we always say. So if you're acting as what you might consider a free market capitalist or an entrepreneur who's simply trading goods or services with somebody else, we always ask the same question: does this violate the rule? Well, if you're dealing with competent adults and there's no force or fraud or coercion, there's no violation of the rule. They should be free to do whatever they like. If, on the other hand, they're engaged in something that we might call crony capitalism, maybe giving money to a representative who then passes some law to force a company to do something or not to do something for the purpose of advantaging or disadvantaging some company. We see this over and over, and there are many forms crony capitalism can take. Well, this violates the rule, and for that reason, we're against it. Well, the same can be said about socialism. If people want to get together and pool their resources and pay common bills out of that pot, who are we to tell them what to do? I don't tell anybody how to live their lives. There's no violation of the rule here. So socialism is what I call voluntary socialism. Because it doesn't violate the rule, it's perfectly permissible. No problem with live and let live. On the other hand, what you might call involuntary socialism, the idea that people get together, pool their resources, decide to pay common bills, and then drag other people into that arrangement who don't want to be part of that arrangement. Okay, for that reason alone, it violates the rule, and that's why we're against it. We don't have to get into discussions about whether capitalism is better than socialism or economics, which raises standards of living better. Hey, that's up for people to live their lives and themselves. Just don't violate the rule. That's all we're saying. Very simple.
It's very simple, and it's so beautiful too, because it's a beautiful filter by how we live our lives and what we decide. Now, there are those that say, well, wait a minute, Marc and Terry, you're just being idealist, because in the real world, there's bad people out there, and we've got to take care of the poor, and we've got to do this or that, whatever function they feel that government should do. You and I would say, well, there's another way to do it. What are your thoughts on how we deal with those who genuinely would need some help, and that would be done in a live and let live way? How would we handle that?
Yeah, actually, there's two parts to this question. I'm often surprised when people say, look, Marc, you're being an idealist or something like that. There are bad people in the world. Of course, there are bad people in the world. The question is, how do we define what's bad and what do we do with them and when do we take action? Well, the answer that we present, because we're not utopians, we know they're bad. I'm a criminal defense lawyer for 27 years. Of course, I know there are bad people in the world. When they violate the rule, that's what makes them bad, is somebody who violates the rule. we deal with them at that point. And look, if somebody's violating the rule, we do everything we can possibly do to stop them and to punish them if they've succeeded at violating the rule. If we know they're going to violate the rule, they're attempting to violate the rule, we can stop them from violating the rule. No problem with any of that. The issue of what about the unfortunate people? And so here's what I would say to say maybe the good people on the left, because there's a lot of good people on the left, right?
Yes.
What I would say to maybe say, let's say the well-intentioned Bernie Sanders supporter who says these types of things, I would say, look, my brother, my sister, we are in complete agreement on many things. You think that there are less fortunate people in the world? I agree. You think we should help them? I agree. You think many other things. People should have access to healthcare and a good education. I agree with all of that. The only place where we disagree is you think these are legal issues and I think they're ethical issues. And as a legal issue, what you're doing is taking your good morality, which I agree with, by the way, and putting it into the law. I'm saying the morality should be outside the law. And as a result, we have these aspirational values. And I would say to my good friend, the good-hearted liberal on the left, I would say, look, I agree. And this is why we're pushing voluntary kindness. We should get together and help these people. Let's do it voluntarily. And the importance of this position is that not everybody agrees with our good morality. Some people have different ideas on morality. What would we say to somebody, for example, and I don't want to pick on anybody, but let's just say somebody has a position where they think that women should have their faces covered in public, and they think that's an important moral rule, and they want to put that into the law. We only have two choices here. Choice number one, we say to that person, look, sorry, our morality is better than your morality, and we're going to put ours in the law and keep yours out of the law. Okay, you see this here? That's what this creates, an endless struggle between people to get control of the law and force their views down other people's throats. Or we take the other approach and we say, look, maybe this is a very nice morality. I don't say anything about it. I don't know. But we've all agreed for the sake of a free society in a peaceful world to pull all of our morality out of the law, even the stuff we agree with. So we got to accomplish good ethical things outside the law. We got to inspire our fellow brothers and sisters to do the right thing. And at the end of the day, if our morality isn't good enough to get people to voluntarily sign on to it, maybe there's a problem with the moral views we're taking and we should reconsider.
I think that's a very open, revealing way to look at it. Because when you think about it, we all like to think, well, my way of doing it is right, of course. Except we also, if we really are honest with ourselves, those of us who've been around for a while, we realize we can change our opinion. We can change and we can do things differently. But you've got something that's a set of principles that work throughout the centuries. It will work anytime, any country, any place where reasonable people are. And I think that's the real key. It's live and let live. Both are strong. You live your life your way. Do what you want. Just let the others live too and don't harm them. And it seems like in business, we've got real opportunities with that, because with that philosophy, now we can go out as entrepreneurs and create value for many more people in the world. We see that all the time. How do you see the entrepreneurial spirit being used with that and people that you've seen using that with live and let live idea?
Well, you know, Terry, this is the reason this works. And of course, it does work. Anywhere around the world you look, closer they are to structuring their rules to the live and let live principle, the better people live everywhere in the world. And the reason this works, because certain principles are just right and they work. And win-win is one of those things. Live and let live is win-win. It's the recognition that your right to run your life isn't any greater than my right to run my life and vice versa. And so good businessmen and businesswomen understand if you want to build a successful business, and I've been running my own law firm now for 24 years, you better start thinking win-win. And you better think about the values and the principles that you're bringing to the table, especially in a world where information flows so freely. People can put good reviews or bad reviews, and the word gets out very quickly. I would encourage everybody listening to this show, think win-win, not just in business, in all things. And I've resolved in my life, Terry, I don't do anything with anybody, whether it's business or social or personal or whatever, that's not win-win. And that means I I got to understand what's a win for the other person. I often start the conversation. Help me understand what's a win for you. Explain it to me. And I live and let live, of course, is a win for you. Imagine I gotta convince you that, hey, Terry, you should be in charge of your life. I think you own that body, and you should be in charge of not just your body, but all of your property and your money and your time in your life. Of course, this is a win for you. The only thing I'm asking for you is you simply recognize the same equal rights that I have. And the other thing I love about Live and Let Live here is, I can't believe, Terry, just on a personal note, that we're still talking about things like racism in 2021. Yeah. I can't believe, and I'm embarrassed for our species that we haven't gotten past this craziness about what color your skin is or where you're born or what language you speak. Our movement, Live and Let Live, is very, very inclusive. We like to think of ourselves as post-racial. Our tribe, if you will, are the reasonable people of the world who recognize Live and Let Live. In fact, we have 10 countries now in Africa signed on to the Live and Let Live movement.
Wonderful.
It's so terrific to see people. We have these monthly meetings where the leaders get on, people of all different colors and varieties of all types, all on there blasting out the Hawaiian shaka, which, as you know, is the symbol that we use for the Live and Let Live movement, all saying Live and Let Live like this, as brothers and sisters together, be united around an important philosophy, a Live and Let Live philosophy, and not caring about immutable characteristics that don't matter. If anything, we celebrate them. I got an invite to come to Nigeria by some of our members over there. They said, Mark, come, we'd love to show you our country in Nigeria. I can't wait to go and eat the food and check out the beaches and just sample the entire culture. We need to get past this craziness of worrying about what color somebody's skin is. It's embarrassing for our species. And I'm very, very proud that Live and Let Live has really moved past this and very clearly and proudly moved past this idea.
We're talking with Marc Victor, who's a person who is living life fully and freely. As a person who embraces live and let live philosophy, this is the way that we do it. It's what we're doing here with Agorapreneurs, the idea of the Agora lifestyle, freely interacting with each other, and entrepreneurs are doing that as well. Marc, you've got some real good plans for the future. I know that by March of 2023, you're getting ready to launch it then. So that means we got a little bit of time now. Yeah, we've got some time. What can people do and where can they go to find out more about the Live and Let Live philosophy and the movement?
Well, the place to start is liveandletlive.org. Go there, watch the videos. You'll see there's a 1-minute video, then another 1-minute video that you'll definitely say, look, I love everything about it, but okay, what does it mean? How does it really offload? How does it apply to these issues? There's then an 8-minute video after that puts a lot more meat on the bones. There's a few other videos there and some FAQs for people who are curious about things. But I'm also in the midst of writing a book right now that's a much deeper dive that I'm getting input from many of my other friends, many of whom are lawyers. This has got to be a practical movement. It has to work. It has to, we talk about not just criminal law, but tort law, contracts law, property law. It has to be a workable philosophy that we can actually at the ground level figure out how people relate to each other. That's what we're really talking about. What should be the rules of the world under which we can relate to each other, right? If you were by yourself on an island, there'd be no need for any of this, or the only one on the planet. We don't need to even talk about property, but this is about interactions between humans. So that book will be coming out soon. But if people want to get together now and really take action and be part of the solution, start a chapter. If there's not a chapter in your area, just reach out to us through the website and say, hey, I'm interested in starting a chapter. I'll get my team in touch with you. Host a meeting once a month. No big deal. We'll appear at the meetings by Zoom if people need help. If you got some money and you want to help, because obviously it's a movement. And the key here, you could have the greatest idea ever. If you haven't communicated it to people, you're not going to get anything done. So we got to communicate it, and we need money to do that, to make that happen. We're also improving the website. So if you can make a donation, fantastic. There's lots of merch on the website. You can buy that as well. And there's the Peace Radicals podcast you alluded to earlier. Once a week, we drop a podcast. It's called Peace Radicals. You can check it out.
I love that name.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not, look, sometimes people call me a radical. I don't think that what we're presenting is so radical, Terry, frankly. You be in charge of you, I be in charge of me. Seems pretty obvious to me.
Very reasonable.
If you want to call that radical, fine, I'll accept it. But we're radical on peace, right? We really need to get to peace because This isn't a luxury anymore, Terry. We got very serious existential threats coming up right now. Artificial intelligence is being developed. This pandemic thing with Corona, this is a warm-up. There are bad guys around the world right now who are experimenting with synthetic biology, who are unfortunately working on setting really deadly chemical and biological agents out there into the world. We got to get a handle on the rules of the world. Reasonable people now need to band together. Our community is now the planet Earth. We got to make peace with that. We saw what just happened with Corona. What a great opportunity to unite the world, right? We're all going through something horrible. It's a great opportunity to stand up and say, look, we really are in a community together. We're brothers and sisters. Damn it. We might look different, but we're all here for such a short time. We should be celebrating life and living life. Instead, we're waging wars and doing crazy things and imposing our views and our particular preferences on other people. It doesn't make any sense, Terry. I know there's going to be bad guys. That's why we got jails and prisons. I wish we didn't need them. Maybe if we could get the rules of the world in order, we could get back to parenting, being better parents. Because if you really want to know why we got so many people in the criminal justice system, it's we haven't done a great job as a whole parenting our kids. This isn't the job for the government. It's the job and role of parents to be parents again. And so these are the kinds of things in the ethics realm that we're trying to push, right? You can ignore all of that stuff if you want. Just don't violate the rule and you're left alone. But we need to do better than that. We need to inspire the world to step up and be higher character, right? Build this thing I said about building high levels of trust with other human beings. Terry, there's one thing we both know about everybody watching this show right now. They're good relationships. The ones, if you said list the relationships, good to bad, the good ones, those are the ones we have high trust with other people. The bad ones, those are the low trust ones. And relationships are really everything here while you're on the planet. Much more important than money. So
most important.
Work on building high levels of trust with other people. These are the kinds of things that are really going to help us to live full and happy, prosperous lives.
Absolutely. And it's also related to business. When you're doing that, you're going to do better in business. And I think we're going to look at things from a realistic point of view of helping. I think of our friends that you and I have that believe in freedom and liberty, but they think it can be accomplished through political. If we just elect these people over here, just elect this one right here, and they might be wonderful people that are running for that office. And they've got some good ideas, many of which we would embrace and go, yeah, that policy would be good. But I've found that the politics and the political approach just doesn't quite work. What we need is the philosophical base of live and let live and get out there in business and go for it. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, the stated goal of what we're trying to do with live and let live is really to get more people on board with our philosophy. Every movement that's a lasting, real movement happens because you win the hearts and minds of enough people to make things happen. The American Revolution wasn't voted in. All of these major changes in the world, if there's a real lasting change, it has to happen because people have changed their hearts and minds. We have a very good message. Historically, it's not been delivered in the most effective package. And so part of what we're trying to do is deliver the message in a simple, concise way that focuses on the principle. We don't argue about things like, for example, how you get to the principle. There's probably a lot of intellectuals watching this podcast right now thinking, okay, Mark, but are you a natural rights guy, or are you social contract, or is it about economics or religion or Ayn Rand or something else? I say, look, it could be about all of them or none of them. I don't care.
Or a combination of them.
Yes, that you get to live and let live is what I care about. How you get there, that's a fun conversation, not something we should be at each other's throats about.
Absolutely. This is the real key. And those of you watching this, think about this. This is real pragmatic. This is how to live life. Live and let live is a kind of a template that you can use for your life on anything. And I'm using the word anything carefully there. Anything that comes up, you think, okay, hold it. Is it harming someone else? Is it going to harm me? Am I hurting someone? They might be doing something that I go, ooh, that's kind of weird. Oh, they shouldn't do that. And maybe I could give a lot of evidence as to why a person shouldn't do certain activities. Maybe what they're putting in their body is not very good. But it's not my right. It's not anyone's right to forcibly tell them they can't do that, to force them to stop doing it. We can use persuasion. We could communicate. I can say, hey, it's wrong to do certain things here, maybe put it out in a peaceful, voluntary way. But what Marc is talking about here is really pragmatic. It can work and really help you. Marc, we really appreciate what you've done, what you're doing right now. And if we get over to liveandletlive.org, we'll be able to find out more about that and do that. Any final words you'd say to that person who's watching this right now that's saying, makes sense. I kind of like it. I want to explore a little bit more to that.
Yeah, I would say don't just sit there and watch CNN or MSNBC or Fox News and crab and crow about everything going on in the world. Be part of the solution. We have a real chance right now to get something done. There's never been an opportunity this good in our lifetimes. Everybody's upset, from the R's to the D's and everywhere in the middle, and even all over the world. People are upset and they're frustrated because what we're currently doing, bashing each other over the head, trying to get other people to comply with how we think they should live, that's not working, and it's never going to work. Just be part of the solution. Get involved. Join, minimally go to the site, join the movement, put your address in there. We need to be able to say we represent millions and millions of people around the world who are live and let livers. Do that minimally and blast it out to everybody in your social network so we can get the word out there. But I would encourage you to do more than that. Donate, start a chapter, get involved, and let's help do this together. If I could do it by myself, Terry, it would be done already. To my dying breath, I'm going to be pushing this movement because it's the right thing to do. And the people involved in this movement want to leave the planet much better than they found it. So it's just a call to get involved and help out and be part of the movement.
Absolutely. Well, Marc, I am honored and proud to know you and to have you as a very good friend. I appreciate what you're doing. Keep up the good work, and we're glad to join forces with you, sir.
I feel the same way about you, brother, and it's been an honor to be on your show today.
You bet. And those of you watching this, think about what you've just heard. This is something that's golden. It's a way for you to live your life, a template, if you will, for how to live. How should we then live is what Francis Schaeffer asked us about years ago. How should we then live? Well, if you live and let that really seep into everything you're doing, you're going to be better off. Hey, we want to hear from you. Leave a comment below wherever you're getting this and let us know. And I hope to see you in the Live and Let Live organization over there. I'm TerryBrock. Thanks for being with us today.
Peace, everybody.